reels, horn
Traditional.
pipes, and yeah.
You like the traditional music.
And you know, some beautiful tunes, old time waltzes, and
Did the radios have come in? Radios hadn't come into the area. Were they coming into the area at that time?
well, back in 1940 there wasn't many radios. There was one family, he had a radio, and when there'd be a football game, you know, there'd be broadcast, there'd be about 50 people in his house.
Listen to that.
You know, it was a treat.
Yeah, of
Such
course.
a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Well, they were expensive.
Yeah. And then then they had a gramophone, you know, that you'd wind up
Right.
his master's voice.
Yeah.
We got one, I think, I must be about 3 years old when we got it. And it was so hard to work it. It was like a computer.
Wind it up. Get the needles for it, right?
Yeah, the needle, you had to change the needles or you know, to scratch the records.
So then when you got out of school, and so you told us earlier you'd worked with a couple of horses. And
yeah, I used to, you know, do our own, and then I'd go for hire, you know, get paid for doing it. You know,
sure.
Making ridges for the potatoes and drills, and the harrow was they called it harrow.
Oh yeah.
You'd walk on that, and you had either one horse or two horse pulling it, and it was zigzag. You know, the teeth in it, about 40 teeth in it.
Yeah. Explain what a harrow did.
Well, a harrow, it made it, it roughed it up.
Yeah.
You harrowed it back and forth, and then you come on and you shook the seed, you know, with your hand.
Well, the harrow was like, it was like a flat item behind the horse with a lot of teeth, and it was almost like a bunch of combs.
Yeah, that's what it was, yeah.
And you stood on it. And
back and forth, hop up, but it was rough walking on that rough, you know, you walked that, on that for a day, and
you were tired.
You didn't have to go to Bally's or...
There were no tractors yet. The tractors hadn't come in too much yet.
The tractors came in about 1949.
Yeah.
No, they were in World War II.
Well, but very few.
Very few. There was a family by the name of Tommy Corkin, but they were always mechanically inclined.
Yeah.
And they had a raper and binder, and they had the plows and everything. You know, you'd hire them.
Oh, sure, yeah.
We didn't have to because we had our own horses.
Yeah.
But a lot of the farmers, they wouldn't allow it in because they says to ruin the land, you know, pound it down.
Yeah. Big tires coming in.
Yeah.
The horse was very natural.
The horse was natural, and he was cheap to run. You gave him oats and hay. And you didn't have to put any fuel on it.
Trashing, the trashing machines.
The trashing machines, they had you had to get your own donkeys, you know, to pull it. The engine was separate. It was a big engine, and you had to get some coals and put it in underneath to heat it up to heat the oil, and then you had to do this. You had to hold your hand like this because if it kicked back, you'd break your knuckle.
That was the thing that's
And then the trash would be set up. That was a big day.
Yeah.
You know, everybody came around, everybody ate, and then they stayed and they had some music and sang. And
well, they got the trashing done in one day, and then they moved on to the next farm. Is that how it from one place to
That's how it was. He might be able to do 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But the modern guys, you know, they had their own horse, and he'd pull the engine, and another horse would pull the thrashing machine, and you know, it was.
Well, it
wasn't very modern, but it was the best they had.
It got the job done.
Yes.
After that period of time, when you decided to leave Ireland, or you were moving on, how did that whole process?
Well, that process, I told my father, you know, this is the last year I'm going to do it. You'll have to get rid of one of the horses.
Yeah.
And the mowing machine. My other brother wasn't, you know, too interested in it. He had an automobile, and he used to drive people around. And so I I had a brother in London, and I went to London, and you go around and you get interviewed.
And when you left Ireland, how did you get to London? You went to London by boat?
I went to London, I went to Holyhead,
Uh-huh.
and then caught the train down.
Okay, so you left Dublin, you went from Dublin over?
Right Dunleary.
Dunleary.
On a boat. I was a boatman.
Over to Holyhead.
Over to Holyhead. You know, it was quite a change.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got a job in a bar. It was they used to call them free houses. In other words, they could sell 2 or 3 kinds of beer. Uh-huh. They had Whitney's Ale and all that. And then he made me a manager after about 6 months, because no other wanted the job. You had to set it up and get the pumps working and wash the cellar out when everybody was gone home. So I spent a year at that, and my other brother, Mike, was in Birmingham, so I gave him a call and I caught the train up there. Mm-hmm. And I went around to a tea company, got interviewed, and it wasn't paying too much money, so I went to the Birmingham Transportation, and I got hired out as a conductor.
Oh.
Well, and you had to work a double-decker bus. Mm-hmm. And you weren't supposed to start it from the rear end. Mm-hmm. But if you did the job, you wouldn't collect half the fares, and then they were after you for letting people go without paying. So I used to start it in the middle. But you try to catch them coming down. Yeah. Then they had a workman's ticket. They called it Marine 2 tickets. You'd put a 4-penny. You had a machine with a strap on it, mm-hmm. and you had all your tickets in it lined up. Mm-hmm. And you to be a 4-penny ride or a 6-penny ride or a shilling ride. Mm-hmm. So you collected all the money, you put it in a little bag, and then you came in the evening and you remitted, mm-hmm. with your money in. Then after about 9 months, they said, "Do you want to be a driver?" I said, "Sure." Mm-hmm. So they train you for 6 months. Oh. Then they bring you up on a hill, the snow hill, and if you let it roll back that much, they fail you. Really? I passed it, the first time. Oh. So I spent 3 years at that.
Driving the bus. And that was the time that was not automatic shift, you had a clutch.
That was clutch,
yeah.
Leland,
right.
Big Leland buses, double-deckers.
Yeah. So you drove that, the Leland double-decker in Birmingham for...
Yeah, well, they used to give you overtime. There was a Dunlop factory, out in the suburbs, uh-huh. and they give you a coach to go out and pick them up. Oh my God, them poor people, they were like this guy's 50 years of age, getting that black lung, and uh-huh. you could smell the rubber off them when they get on the bus.
No kidding.
Yeah. But there was no... them people died when they were about 50 years of age. Yeah. Like the coal miners. Yeah. There was no safety, no masks.
What were they making out there? Dunlop tires?
Dunlop tires.
Yeah.
And then we were in a Roman house. My Pat Sweeney from Mayo, he couldn't pass the test because there was something wrong with one of his eyes, but he got a job in Cadbury's factory.
Oh, they make the chocolates.
We used to eat a lot of chocolate. Cadbury's factories in it, Bird's Custard.
Okay.
Oh, that was their headquarters.
In Birmingham. So Birmingham was was there a big Irish
community
there?
Yes.
Was there a club that you guys got together in?
Oh yeah, they had the Gary Owen and all them clubs, yeah.
Oh.
We used to, Saturday night, take off, but it was mostly ballroom dancing.
Yeah.
Once in a while in London, especially St. Chad's, they used to have Cayleys. Uh-huh. They were...
When you lived in Birmingham and in London too, did you live in like, you got digs?
Got digs, rooming house.
Rooming house, yeah. How was that?
It was good. Mm-hmm.
Were they normally run by English people or by Irish people?
English people.
English people, yeah. Okay.
I always got on very good at things. I thought they were real gentlemen and nice people,
yeah.
and they weren't arrogant or
treated you well, fed you well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, you feed yourself.
Oh, you fed yourself. Okay.
You could go in and, full digs. You'd had a cafeteria, on the bus stopper, and you get a meal there.
Yeah. One question I forgot to ask you back in Ireland when you were living back in there, and it's a kind of a morbid, but it was how did treated death around your part of the country? When somebody died.
Well, when they died, they put them in a habit, a black habit they called it. It was like a robe.
Yes.
Like a bedrobe, and then some neighbour would come in and shave you,
Right.
or shave
you
the
died
corpse.
Right.
Yeah.
Mostly
Mostly everybody died at home, except they were in the hospital.
Right. Yeah.
If they were in the hospital,
that was all taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But most people died at home.
Yeah. Well, then they had a wake, that night, and they had the Guinness stout, and they had, everybody got a drink. Say the rosary, and the priest came, and then the hearse came. They were mostly pulled by horses.
Now they stayed up all night, did they? Or
yes.
Yes. There was always like some people. There was a vigil kept up.
Yeah. Well, you and a couple of more, take over for a couple of hours, and
somebody else would do.
Yeah. It was a whole night. They didn't leave them
they were never left alone. Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of a good funeral or good wake. Was a kind of to show that they were well respected.
Oh yeah.
That was what that was, right. Okay.
Well, all the neighbours used to come.
And that still goes on in many areas of Ireland to this day. The funeral homes have not come in yet. Some have.
Some have. Mostly in the towns they have.
Yeah.
Like Ennis and Roscommon and Strokestown.
But in the countryside, it's still the old
way.
The old way. Yeah. What made you think about coming to America after you were still? Many years were you in England?
I spent from 1950 to 54. I came to this country Thanksgiving Eve. I came over on a boat, Mauritania. Great time.
Okay. Now, where did you leave England? Where did you get on the boat in England?
Cove.
Oh, you got in Cove in County Cork.
I came home for a week. Say goodbye to them.
Everybody. Your folks, your father and mother were still living?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They were living.
Yeah.
My brother was there, and then they had party for you and music, and my cousin played the accordion.
Oh really? Yeah.
Mikey Farrell, and Teddy Donnelly, and Jack.
Had a bit of a dance there.
Bit of a dance.
Yeah.
Say goodbye to everybody.
Yeah.
When you come on the boat and you see, the Statue of Liberty and all the automobiles, I said to myself, there must be a great country, all those automobiles. But when you get used to it, you don't even think of it.
No.
But it's one of the finest countries in the world.
Oh, yeah.
This people don't realize it.
Yeah.
You can be a bum. You can be the middle class. You can have one job. You can have two jobs. Nobody cares. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Great. Now, how was England at that time? England was doing very good in the early 50s.
The economy was good. Well, see what happened in Birmingham when I was leaving. They couldn't get any conductors to work the buses. So they came in from Jamaica and Africa and all over.
Oh, really?
And especially up in Spark Hill. They'd buy a house between them for maybe one family, and about 10 families would live in it.
Oh, good man.
And then about 20 years later, they started riots in London and Birmingham,
Really?
minorities.
Yes.
The people that came, their kids, they said they were mistreated.
Yeah. Now, those were a lot of Jamaicans, a lot of Africans came in at that time. What about Pakistanis? A lot of Pakistanis came in at this time.
All them countries.
All those countries came in.
Well, they were British.
They were British subjects.
Subjects.
Yeah.
The British owned them countries, and then they gave up the ownership.
And so, When you landed here in New York, where did you land in New York when you got here? Did you come in on Ellis Island?
Ellis Island.
Oh, really? Okay. Tell us a little bit about what that was all like. What that
Well,
process was.
you got off of the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was 2 or 3 doctors you had to go through. There was, I'm not going to mention any, but there was one guy, they almost sent him back.
Oh, really?
He had a spot on his lung.
Oh. So it was pretty thorough.
Third, they put him one side and gave him the 3rd degree, but they finally let him through.
Mm-hmm.
He's still alive.
Okay, that's right.
He's still in good health.
He did pretty good. How was the trip coming over? That was like
the trip. It was the best week ever I had. I think it took 6 days that time.
Uh-huh.
You know, music and parties and eat and
cruise.
Eat and be my cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. And how long did they keep you on Ellis Island then?
I'd say about 3 hours.
Oh, that was pretty fast.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Then my brother and his friend Tom Finn, had a 49 Plymouth. They came down and met me and my sister Anne.
Mm-hmm.
Took me down to East Main Street. That's where my aunt lived.
Okay, this was in Bridgeport?
Yeah.
So you came from New York City to pick you up down at
Yeah.
and
I arrived in East Main Street.
up to Bridgeport.
Up to Bridgeport.
Okay. What was your first impression? I know you said when you came on the boat there you saw all the cars, but that first day driving up here from New York.
It was very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you see people, all you had was a horse and a buggy.
Yeah.
You know where I came from.
Yeah.
You know.
Big cars of the 50s were there in America, I guess.
Well, they weren't that big. They had the 14. The first car I got was a Morris Minor.
Mm-hmm.
I had it for a couple of years with the little sunroof on it.
Yeah.
You pull it back, and then my next car was a 49 Plymouth.
Oh. Yeah.
I had that that was a good
That was
automobile.
a good car. Yeah.
And then I graduated to a 57 Chevy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I graduated to the Beetle.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a 62 Beetle in 1961.
Yeah.
I'm driving a 73 now.
Uh-huh.
This is where General Motors and Ford and Chrysler, they weren't too smart. And the way the Volkswagen started was Hitler.
Uh-huh.
He